Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to a Week 6 review of our picks on DraftKings, as well as looking forward here to Week 7, some picks we're interested in. So getting right into it, bottom line, this was not a great week for me. Just missed here pretty bad, but a little bit obviously unlucky with some injuries. So decided to go overweight this week with Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Nelson and Adam Thielen stack, which I still think process-wise was pretty good. I knew it was a tough matchup, obviously, for the Packers, going against a pretty good Vikings defense, but I wanted to get exposure to Aaron Rodgers, who'd been the best quarterback in football this year at a low ownership, and I was able to accomplish that. Not a lot of people had Aaron Rodgers. Jordy was a little bit higher owned, but the stack itself was not, especially bringing it back with Thielen. But, of course, Aaron Rodgers got hurt early in the game, ended up with only 0.72 points. Really hurt me overall there. Jordy as well suffered then as the game plan completely changed for the Packers once they lost Aaron Rodgers, obviously. So just a little unlucky there. The game totally went a different way. Not something we can predict. But Thielen, as I was hoping, was a target monster. Ended up with 18.7 points when expected to have 15. So a good pick there. Was kind of chalky, but was happy to have him. Tight end wise, we talked about Ryan Griffin playing against the good old Browns. Was only projected at 7.6 points, put up 10. Not the best day, probably the worst day a tight end's had against the Browns, still double digits. So again, using our flow chart or our Venn diagram of, if the Browns are playing and the opposing team has employs a tight end, we play them. Cameron Brate was a better play this week. Again, he's been really good for me all week. He caught his fourth touchdown in a row. Fourth game in a row with a touchdown, ended up with 19.6 points on a projection of 9.7. That was a great play. Really was happy to have him. Alvin Kamara was kind of my pivot away from Ingram, who became the chalk play that everyone played, and Ingram came through with 2 touchdowns. So Kamara was posted for 14.4, only put up 12.7, so did miss value, but not by much. Had a really athletic play where he hurdled a guy. Thought he might be able to get into the end zone, just didn't work out. And then Devontae Freeman, kind of one of my bigger disappointments this week. I don't think the process here was wrong. Somehow, they got up like 14 or 17 to nothing in the first half, as I expected. And then they just decided to keep throwing the ball and not pound Devontae Freeman and ended up losing the game to the Miami Dolphins. So Atlanta, I think their process was wrong. I don't think our process was wrong here. Devontae Freeman, the game flow set up for him. They just didn't execute it and have losing the game. So, 18.4 is the expectation. Only put up 9.9. I still like where my head was at in here. I just think they played their game plan wrong on the field. So let's get into some picks for this week. Another tough week. DraftKings pricing is very tight. Gotta find value if we're going to play any kind of higher dollar guys. There wasn't a lot of value out there this week, so a little bit interesting game stack that I'm looking at here. And that's going Tyrod Taylor to LaShawn McCoy and bringing it back with Mike Evans. Now, this game here just has a 3-point spread in the game. There's a little bit of concern because Jameis Winston's possibly not going to play. So I think the Vegas line could adjust, could change a little bit here based on how that information comes out. But the Bucs defense has been really friendly to the passing game, specifically to wide receivers. Unfortunately, Tyrod doesn't have a go-to receiver necessarily, so there's not a really easy one to pick. So McCoy, though, we've talked about this before, McCoy's gotten 6, 7, 7, 3, and 9 targets this year. And he may actually lead the Bills in receptions this season. He's always had that ability. Kind of consider him a little more as a receiver here. Like I said, these Bucs defense have given up a lot in the passing game. So my hope is here we can get LaShawn a catching or a receiving touchdown. Tyrod may have a rushing touchdown. His floor is always there. He's coming off a tough game, however, so he may have some low ownership because in the start of the season he has had 8, 8, 8, 7, and last game just 1 rush attempt. I think that's the outlier, right? If he's gonna have 7, 8 attempts running, could get a touchdown. Could get us that 40 yards, which, as we've talked about, that's another touchdown pass, essentially. So, I really like him. Sometimes just playing Tyrod naked with none of his receivers or any other options is good here. But looking at all the other games, there's not a lot of other things I want to sink my teeth into. I want to get exposure to this game. Think it could go a little bit higher. And so this is the way we can do that. So Winston, he may not play this game, but Fitzmagic looked pretty good last week coming in. This is also a revenge game for him. I may not be saying a lot because he's played for so many teams. He almost has a revenge game potentially every week. But it is a revenge game for him. And he's coming in, looking okay. He has experience, too, with a guy like Mike Evans, right? He had Brandon Marshall when he was a Jet and just targeted him. And they had good success, especially in the red zone. Where comes Mike Evans, who's had 9, 12, 11, 8 targets this season? So, yes, they're going up against a little bit of a tougher defense here. However, I just feel it's a spot that we can possibly attack and get Mike Evans in the end zone here for no other reason if he just gets getting peppered with targets from Fitzpatrick. So let's talk about some tight ends. Number one out the gate is actually going to be Jimmy Graham. I know. We all thought it was going to be whoever's playing the Browns. Actually not going to be the case this week, which we'll discuss. So 40-point Vegas total with a 5.5 spread here. And Graham has had 7, 2, 11, 6, and 8 targets this season. So again, one outlier game. He's getting targeted a lot. This guy was right there with Gronk a few years ago. People have forgotten about him, but Jimmy Graham can still ball. The Giants' defense is actually right there with the Browns as far as tight ends. Look at some of the games they've had this year. Hunter Henry put up 18 points. Cameron Brate, an 18-point week. Ertz, 18.5. Fells for the Lions in week 1 put up 10.6 when no one knew who he was. So the Giants' defense is giving up points to that tight end position, and Jimmy Graham's about $800 or $900 cheaper than Delaney Walker, and he is priced really expensively. So I feel like Walker's going up against Cleveland. I would love to play him, and I may still have some exposure to him. It's just pricing is so tight; it's hard to get that $800-900. And here's Jimmy Graham in a similar upside situation with a really great matchup. On the other end of the spectrum, as speaking of trying to save money, I also kind of looking at Julius Thomas this week. Kind of a dart throw at $2,600, but he's gotten 3, 5, 4, 4, and 5 targets. Right, so not great when you look at someone like Jimmy Graham. Look at something like what the Browns are giving up. However, he's also had no touchdowns, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of Kittle from a couple weeks ago. He was actually getting less targets than this per game before he went in facing the Colts. And now Julius Thomas gets a Jets defense who are 4th in the league in terms of average points to the tight end given up. So again, playing the matchup here, playing a situation that not a lot of people are going to be thinking about. Jay Cutler's concern, for sure. I'm not going to have huge exposure to Julius Thomas, but probably going to have him a little bit. Just feel like this is a spot where he can probably take some of those targets going up against a defense that's a little weak and get to that touchdown. Let's talk about cheap wide receiver for a tight week, right? I'm just telling you, this pricing as you get in there and look. We're going to want to try to play Le'Veon Bell, trying to play LaShawn McCoy, trying to play, Fournette. These guys are expensive, and there's not a lot of value. But there is one that I've kind of found here in Robert Woods. Now, this game has a 47-point Vegas total with a 3.5-point spread. And Woods is the wide receiver 2 in his offense going up against the Cardinals, which is an ideal matchup. And that is simply because their number 2 cornerback is Justin Bethel. Now, he may get benched. He's been awful this year. As you can see, Deshaun Jackson put up 12.8. Torrey Smith had that 15.7-point game. Trent Taylor, 9.7. Bryce Butler, 19 points. Okay, it's always the wide receiver 2. Patrick Peterson can shut guys down. If he's on Sammy Watkins here, probably going to shut him down. But Robert Woods is that wide receiver 2, so I like the matchup. And he's had 5, 4, 7, 6, 8, and 7 targets. Fairly consistent, getting looks. It's not like he's coming out of nowhere. And again, we're just playing that matchups. And he also has no touchdowns with that. So I think he's on the wrong side of variance. He's got a good plus matchup here. He's got good target share. And he's fairly cheap on DraftKings, so we kind of have to attack. And I do believe this is a game that could eclipse that 47-point total. So someone's got to score those touchdowns. I think maybe Robert Woods gets in the box. Hopefully once, maybe a couple times if he can burn that matchup. Another weird place to look is Marquise Lee. So it's the gift that just keeps on giving my Colts defense. Woeful defense. And if you watched the Monday night game, just woeful coaching. Yeah, that's about all you can really say. And this is even with Blake Bortles at quarterback, which is a joke, but it's the truth. I mean, it's a good matchup. 43.5-point Vegas total with a 3.5-point spread. Lee is kind of having to take up a bigger role with Allen Robinson being out. It is a risky play because his targets have ranged anywhere this season from 3 in a game to 12. So not the consistency we like to see. But in this type of matchup, with the price that he's sitting at, I think he's got to be in consideration, at least to put in some GPPs, try to save some money and get to some better options elsewhere. He's just too cheap to ignore to allow cap space. Now he's also coming in questionable. If he's out, obviously that's a problem. We can't do much with him, or if he's limited. So there are a couple other wide receivers we can keep an eye on. Eric Decker is one. Got him in the Jets jersey here. It's the only picture I could get, but he is obviously with Tennessee this year. And he's coming off a pretty good Monday night performance against those Colts. And due to the fact that he was on Monday night, his pricing was not updated in DraftKings. So he had a good game, and they did not up his price. So he's got a little bit of a good value going there. He's getting a lot of targets, kind of like what I'm seeing out of offense, especially if Mariota plays. The other is Juju Smith-Schuster, who has completely taken over the wide receiver 3 role there in Pittsburgh. So continues to get targets, probably a name not everyone's on yet. Going to have a breakout game at some point. Is in a fairly decent matchup, and I just think, again, with the cost savings you can get there, allows you to get some of the higher price running backs. I think that's where I want to go this week. I want to try to stack in Zeke and Le'Veon and LaShawn Fournette in there, maybe Melvin Gordon. To get to those places, we've got to have some value here, and these are the areas I'm kind of looking. Some of these are a little risky, just given the offense that they're in, but it's a risk we're going to have to take. So that's it. Good luck to everyone in Week 7. I'm hoping for a better Week 7. Week 6 was the worst week for me of the season due to injury. Really hoping just for a lack of more injuries. It's been a rough year that way, and hopefully everybody can make it through. So if you like the video, please like, comment, subscribe. You can follow me anytime on Twitter @InPlaneup. We'll see you guys here next week talking Week 8. See ya.